Okay, shalom to all the viewers and all praises to the Most High, the creator of heaven and earth. And today is the continuation of the last video on the Bantus, the lost tribes of Israel. The Negroes or the Bantus are the lost tribes of Israel. So we explained that the first wave of migration actually happened with the northern kingdom of Israel. The migration of the northern kingdom of Israel into Africa was the first wave of migration of the Bantus, which actually took place before Christ. And those are the Bantus who are living in Africa today. They are still in Africa. According to the scriptures, they will be keeping the statues until the latter time, until the Messiah comes back. That's what it means. And in today's lesson, we're going to deal with the migration of the southern kingdom. And what you're going to find out is that there were some migrations of the kingdoms of Judah that happened before Christ, and the rest of the migration of the southern kingdom took place after Christ. And eventually they went over there in Africa and they're mixed. They got mixed with the northern kingdom that were already there in Africa. So that's what we're going to touch on today, the breakdown of the migration of the southern kingdom into Africa. And lastly, we're going to uncover the true identity of the modern day Jewish people that are living in the land of Israel today. So those are the 2 points that we're going to touch on in today's message. Without further ado, let's get the message started. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start with the migration of the southern kingdoms. And like I said before in the previous video, that after the northern kingdom of Israel went into Africa, which are the Bantus, only the tribe of Judah or the southern kingdom was left in Israel, in Jerusalem. And they're the only one who went into the rest of the captivities, meaning from the Babylonian captivities all the way up till the time of Christ. There was only Judah that was left there. But before we get into this, I want to bring out something very important, something that a lot of people don't know it. The term Jew started to be used after the northern kingdom of Israel left Israel and went into Africa. And the term Jew was used to describe the people from the southern kingdom or somebody from the tribe of Judah. And the term Jews was politically created in order to associate the white people that are living in the land of Israel today with the people of God. So the true word would have been Judean, somebody from the tribe of Judah. And in Hebrew tongue, it would have been Yahudi, because there is no letter J in the Hebrew tongue. It's actually Yahudi to describe somebody from the tribe of Judah. And the term Jew has a political and religious connotation, whereas the term Judean doesn't have a political or religious connotation. The term Judean has a geographic connotation. It actually, when you say Judean, you actually describing somebody from the tribe of Judah. He lives in Jerusalem from the tribe of Judah. That's what it means. A lot of people don't know this, and it's very important to understand that. So the term Judean or Jews was used to describe the people from the southern kingdom. It's very important.
Now the word Jew today has a religious as well as a political connotation. You think of a Jewish entity, a government, but you also think of their religion incorporated at the same time. Whereas the term Judean is a geographic connotation. It's a geographic. It doesn't incorporate the religion. It's where he came from. He was from Judah. He was a Judean.
So now we're going to deal with the southern kingdom. And like I said, only the southern kingdom went into the rest of the captivities, from Babylonian captivities all the way down to the Roman rulership during the time of Christ. So now let's deal with the Babylonian captivities. You see, he says all Israel was recorded in genealogies and is actually written in the book of the kings of Israel. And Judah was taken into exile in Babylon. So now let's go into the books of the kings where it is written about the captivities of Judah. So see, this is the king of Babylon who came and they surrounded the city of Jerusalem. Like I said, only Judah, only the people of Jerusalem, the southern kingdom, went into these captivities. So they were carried away into Babylon. But eventually the kings they left the poor people of the land in Jerusalem to till the ground and grow crops and things of that nature. They left the poor people in the land, but they carried the majority of the people into captivity. And as a matter of fact, this Babylonian captivity actually happened during the time of the prophet Jeremiah, the major prophet Jeremiah. These things happened during that time because it was right there when the scenario cropped up. So eventually, when you read in the history book, it talked about Egypt and Jerusalem signing a treaties to fight against the king of Babylon, because the king of Babylon was coming against Jerusalem. So they signed the treaties with Egypt to fight against the Babylonian. But eventually it didn't work, and a lot of people of Jerusalem, they fled into Egypt along with the prophet of Jeremiah. When you read in the history book, they fled into Egypt. And that's the beginning of the second migration, because the second migration just didn't happen like the first migration. The second migration of the Israelites or the Bantus into Africa, it was a sequence of the migrations. Basically, it was a series of migrations that happened. This is the beginning of the second migration of the Israelites into Africa. So they fled into Africa to hide from the Babylonian, because the Babylonian was coming back to put all the Israelites to death. So they fled into Egypt along with the prophet Jeremiah. So now we're going to go into the next captivities, which is the Persian captivities, which happened only with the tribe of Judah. Again, like I said, only the tribe of Judah. So after the people of Israel from the southern kingdom, after they came back from the Babylonian captivities, they went back into the land of Israel in Jerusalem. Then the Persians came on down there and took the Israelite and made them slaves. But the Persian captivities was not as severe as the other captivities. And the Most High, during that time, the Most High had mercy on the Israelite and allowed them to stay in Jerusalem and build up the cities or the temple of David. And right after that, you had the Greeks who came up and took the Israelites and made them slaves. But the Greek captivities is actually not recorded in the ordinary Bible that we have, the 60 books of the Bible that we have. You have to go into the Apocrypha to actually get the account of the Greek captivities. So now let's go back into the Apocrypha to get the account of the Greek captivities that happened during that time. In consideration of these things, Judah chose Eupolemus, the son of John, the son of Achos, and Jason, the son of Eleazar, and sent them to Rome and make a league of amity and confederacy with them, and to entreat them that they would take the yoke from them. For they saw that the kingdom of the Grecians did oppress Israel with servitude. So this is basically the Greek captivities that's going on. But this is not giving a detailed explanation of what happened during the Greek captivities. But if you go further back in the book of Maccabees, in the chapter number 1, you're going to get the accounts of the full story of the Greek captivity that happened during that time in Jerusalem. So basically, there are so many verses that go into this. There's 64 verses that go into this in the chapter, the first chapter of the books of Maccabees in the Apocrypha. So because there's so many verses, we cannot go into it. It's time consuming. So I'm going to drop the link below for everybody to be able to download it for free. But you can Google it and download it for free. And if you have like a iPhone, you can just go to the Apple Store and download it for free. It's part of the King James Version Bible, the Apocrypha. You can get it for free anywhere. So basically, I'm just going to give you a little snippet of what happened during that time. So the Greeks that came on down there in Jerusalem to enslave the people. So they captured Judah, and then they sought to Hellenize the people, and they brought in their own people, and they start to impose the paganistic customs on the people of Israel. And they were going cities by cities throughout Jerusalem and the cities of Judah, house by house, and they were checking on the people. And if anybody happened to be caught to practice the Hebraic faith or still keeping the law of the Most High in the Old Testament, they would be put to death. So they sought to Hellenize the Jews, and they were sacrificing swines and pigs on the altar, which was an abomination to the Judean, to the Israelite. That was against the practice and the customs of the Israelite. And as a result of that, as a result of this religious persecution, many Judeans fled into Africa. They went into the countries of Africa, and that marks the another migration of the Israelite. And it matches up perfectly with the migration of the Bantus. The Bantus of the southern kingdom that left over there, who were left over there in the land after the northern kingdom went into the first captivities of the Assyrians. The second migration started with the Babylonian captivities. During the Babylonian captivities, some Israelites or Judean that went into Africa, Egypt, because you remember I told you they signed the treaties with the Egyptian to fight against the Babylonian. And during the Greek captivities, there was a lot of atrocities that befell the children of Israel, and as a result of that, they fled into Africa because they couldn't take it, and they were not even allowed to circumcise the kid, which is one of the major customs of the Hebrews. You have to circumcise a kid, but they were not allowed to do that. And if any woman happened to get caught circumcises their kid, she will be put to death. If you get caught still practicing the Hebraic faith, you're going to be put to death. So they imposed their culture, the pagan culture, on the people of the land. And the people, as a result of that, they fled into Africa. They couldn't take it anymore. So now we're going to go into the history book, because it is recorded into in the history book. So now we're going to go into the history book and to get a little bit more detailed information on that, on the Greek captivities. And you're going to find out exactly what happened. And the Greek captivities actually led up to a major migration of the Bantus into Africa, which are the Israelites. In the year 331, that Alexander the Great defeated the Persian Emperor Darius at the Battle of Gaugamela. A new master emerged on the world stage and transformed the history and culture of three continents. However, Alexander died in the prime of his life at the age of 32 because of debauchery and intoxication. Before the death of Alexander, his desire was to establish a Eurasian state. His scheme was to amalgamate the Greeks with the Asians. This was implemented by the widespread marriage of his troops with the colored women of the East. Most of his troops remained in the subjugated countries and became absorbed into the native population. After the death of Alexander, his vast empire was divided among his generals. Ptolemy received Egypt, and Seleucus received Asia, As time elapsed, there was constant war between these two dynasties. By the year 198 BC, the descendant of General Seleucus had their capital in Syria, just north of Palestine. In this same year, the Seleucid dynasty in Syria compelled Egypt to give up Palestine, the land of the Jews. The king of Syria at this time was Antiochus III. When Antiochus IV usurped the throne in Syria, he entertained the thought of uniting Alexander's empire. This meant the conquest of Egypt. However, the province that bordered on Egypt was Palestine, which stood in his way. At this time, the Jews would not accept Greek culture. Nevertheless, Antiochus was determined to Hellenize the Jews. The army of Antiochus marched into Palestine to support Menelaus, the leader of the pro-Syrian party. As a result of that, many Jews were killed, others escaped to the hills and to Egypt. Only those Jews that supported Antiochus' policies remained in Jerusalem. An edict was promulgated interdicting the observance of the holidays, the Sabbath, and circumcision. A statue of Jupiter was erected in the holy temple above the altar. To this statue, the people brought the sacrifices of pig meat, the animal which is an abomination to the Jews. Because of this religious persecution, the legitimate high priest Onias III and many other Jews fled into African countries such as Egypt, Ethiopia, and Cyrenaica, Libya. Throughout the last 2,500 years, the main factors that have contributed to the social migration of the Jews were wars, religious persecution, and commerce. All these factors were operating and gave rise to the African Jewish population. See, this is the same exact thing that happened in the Bible. So this book is giving you the account of the Greek captivities with the Israelites, with the southern kingdom, and it's the same exact thing in the book, in the Apocrypha, in the books of Maccabees. When you read the first chapter of the books of Maccabees, he's giving you exactly the same story, and that's what they did. The Greeks, they came over there in the land of Israel and they enslaved the southern kingdom, and they killed many Jews, and they Hellenized the Judean. And they imposed their culture on them, and they converted. They were seeking to convert the people of Israel into their pagan religion. And if anyone happened to get caught practicing the Hebraic faith, the custom written in the first 5 books of Moses, they will be put to death. And they forbade the people of Israel to circumcise the kid, to observe the Sabbath, to practice their faith, the Hebraic faith. And as a result of that, as a result of this religious persecution, many Judeans or the people of Jerusalem couldn't take it. So they fled into Africa. A lot of them fled into Africa, and that marks the beginning, not the beginning, but that was one of the major migration of the Bantus into Africa. And this actually happened with the complicity of the people of Tyre and Zidon and all the coast of Palestine. Those are the ones who helped the Greeks to enslave the people of Israel. Those are the neighboring countries of the Israelites: Tyre, Zidon, and all the coast of Palestine. They participate in the enslavement of the people of Israel. And eventually the people of Israel, a lot of them from Judah, they went into Africa, deep into Africa, running away from the Greeks. So obviously they went over there and they met their other brothers from the other kingdom, from the northern kingdom, who were already there, who left Israel a long time ago during the Assyrian captivities. So basically that was a major migration of the Bantus from the southern kingdom of Israel that went into Africa, running away from the Greeks that was persecuting them, Hellenizing the Jews, and they couldn't take it. So they had to flee from Israel into Africa so they can find a safety place to live there. So obviously the the continent of Africa was already filled with a bunch of Israelites, because the northern kingdom was already there. And during the Babylonian captivities, you have a portion of the Jews, along with the prophet Jeremiah, who went down there to Africa in Egypt. And during the Greek captivities, there was a great deal of the people. There was a major migration that happened with the Judeans from the tribe of Judah. They went straight into Africa, running away from the Greeks' persecution. So obviously the continent was already filled with a bunch of Judeans and the northern kingdom. So now we're going to go into the Roman the rulership during the time of Christ, and that is going to be that is going to mark the beginning of the last migration of the Israelites, because the last migration happened after the Messiah. So now this is the time of Christ, who you call the time of the Messiah. Now, in this passage here, this is a high priest from the tribe of Levi, and this happened in Jerusalem, in one of the cities of Judea. So this man, he was talking about the Messiah that is going to die for the people of Israel. And he says that he was talking to the people that were seeking to destroy or to kill the Messiah, even though he wasn't doing anything, because they were set up by the Roman to destroy the Messiah. Because like I said, at this time the nation of Israel was already under the rulership of the Roman. So this high priest, he was talking to the other scribes and Pharisees and says, don't you know that it would be better for this man to die for the whole nation, so that the nation should not perish, and that he's not going to die only for this nation, but for the children of God that were scattered abroad. So this is further proof that the people of Israel were already gone. They were scattered abroad in Africa specifically, along with a good portion of the tribe of Judah during the Greek captivities, who fled from the Greeks' persecution. He's talking about them. He's talking about those people who fled from Israel into Africa, running away from slavery. And this is further proof that there was already a great deal of the Israelites in Africa, including the northern kingdom and a portion of the southern kingdom, Judah. So here, this is the Messiah himself in this passage, having a conversation with a Canaanite woman, a Gentile woman. A Gentile is somebody from a non-Israelite heritage. And for the people out there who don't know anything about the Bible, the Most High, at this time, the Most High was not dealing with the Gentile. It was only dealing with the nation of Israel, because the laws was not given to anybody else outside of the nation of Israel, for those out there who don't know anything about the Bible. So he said to this Canaanite woman who was beseeching him for him to heal her daughter, he said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The house of Israel is the northern kingdom, because they were already lost. He said, I am only sent to these people because they were already lost. They were into exile in Africa, along with the other tribe, with the other portion of Judah who went into Africa during the Greek captivities. That's what it's referring to. These 12 Jesus sent forth and commanded them, saying, go not into the way of the Gentiles, and into any city of the Samaritans enter ye not, but go rather to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Then there you go again. This is the Messiah. He's giving a commandment to the 12 apostles, to the 12 disciples. He's telling them, hey, you don't have to go to the ways of the Gentiles. Don't go preach to the Gentile, but go rather to the lost sheep of the northern kingdom and the people that fled into Africa. That's what it means. To the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The house of Israel is the northern kingdom. Go and find your brother over there, man. Go find them and you preach the word, but not to these other nations. So obviously, the northern kingdom was not there ever since, like I told you earlier in the video. After the Assyrians' captivities, they were gone. You never heard about them again. All the way up till the time of Christ. And that's what's going on right now. He's telling you that they are lost. The house of Israel. You don't even heard about them. You only hear about Jerusalem, Judea, and the tribe of Judah, the southern kingdom. Because they were already lost. They are in Africa. They were already in Africa at this time. That's why he said, I am not sent but unto the lost sheep of the tribe of the house of Israel. Let's get some more. Now, this is Christ right here speaking to the Israelite in Jerusalem. He's speaking to the Judean and the people from the southern kingdom. He says, when you see the Romans coming in, if you see the Jerusalem surrounded by the Roman armies, you better get ready to flee into the mountains. Go to Africa. That's essentially what it means. And then he's prophesying the vengeance that's going to befall, that's going to fall upon the cities. He's prophesying what is going to happen to the children of Israel from the southern kingdom. He said that they're going to fall by the edge of the sword, and they're going to be led away captive into all nations, as prophesied in the Old Testament. And Jerusalem, most importantly, Jerusalem is going to be trodden down by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentile be fulfilled. So that means this prophecy right here is marking the beginning of the last migration of the Israelites that's going to happen. This is the Messiah who's prophesying the last migration of the Israelite from Jerusalem into Africa. This is exactly what he's saying. He said, when you see the Romans coming in, you better get ready to go to flee into the mountains. And what you're going to realize is that the mountain that he was talking about was the land of Africa. And we're going to get into that in a minute from the history books. So now he's prophesying that the people of Jerusalem is going to be led captive by the Romans. And they're going to flee from Israel into Africa from the Roman persecution. They're going to be led captive into all nations, man, from the four corners of the earth. And Jerusalem is going to be inhabited by the Gentiles, meaning that the inhabitant of the Israel today are the Gentile, which we're going to prove that in a minute. But first of all, let's find out if that prophecy that the Messiah was talking about, if it actually came to pass, if it was true or not. Let's find out after his death and his ascension up into heaven. Let's find out if it eventually happened, just like he said. Let's find out if there was still Israelite in the land of Israel, if they were all gone, if they were all scattered into all nations abroad. Let's find out. James chapter 1 verse 1. James, a servant of God and the Lord Jesus Christ, to the 12 tribes which are scattered abroad, greeting. So you mean to tell me that these people weren't they were all gone? The 12 tribes of Israel, they were already gone. This is to concur exactly what the Messiah was prophesying. The Messiah said there was going to be led captives, and that was the last tribes left in Israel, the southern kingdom, because the northern tribe, you already know, they were already in Africa. And the Messiah came and he prophesied that the southern kingdom is going to be led captive into all nations. And James is letting you know that this prophecy has come to pass. Even during the time of James, they were already gone, man. There was nobody over there. They were already gone, scattered abroad. They're gone, man. And after that, there was nowhere in the Bible that says that these people return. They're not going to be returning until the Messiah comes back. The Messiah, he's the one who's going to come back and gather his people. The 12 tribes of Israel, they were already gone. They were all scattered abroad. The northern kingdom, with a great portion of Judah, is still in Africa to this day. And another portion of Judah went into slavery during the transatlantic slave trade. And we're going to touch on that in the future video. The people that, the black people, the Bantus that went into slavery during the Arab trade, the slave trade, and the transatlantic slave trade are from the southern kingdom, according to the Bible. Because the Bible says that Judah is going to be gathered from the four corners of the earth. And Israel, the northern kingdom, is going to gather from beyond the river of Cush, or Ethiopia, which is in Africa. Those are the northern tribe who are still there, mixed with the southern kingdom, the tribe of Judah. But in Africa, you don't know exactly who belongs to the tribe of Judah. You don't know, because the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, they're the same exact people. They have the same custom. But we know for sure, according to the Bible, that the people that went into slavery on ships during the transatlantic slave trade, they are from the tribe of Judah, or Levi, because you got Levi and Judah together in the southern kingdom, along with Benjamin. In the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jewish state with great slaughter. During the period of the military governors of Palestine, many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. The slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves. You see, over 1 million of you Bantus fled from the land of Israel into the land of Africa, running away from the Romans, because the Romans were relentless and were determined to put all Israelites to death. And so in order to get any type of peace, the Bantus or the Israelites had to start migrating to those regions in Africa where the Roman didn't have any jurisdiction. And the market was full of Judeans, man. This is the same exact thing, just like the Messiah says, that when you see Jerusalem compassed or surrounded by the Roman armies, you better flee to get into the mountains. So the mountains was actually the lands of Africa. This is essentially what happened. And this is the last migration of the Bantus or the Israelites into Africa. And the slave markets were full of black Jewish slaves or black Judean slaves. The pagans and the Romans attacked the Jewish indiscriminately, both the Jewish soldiers and the uninvolved peaceful population, without mercy. As a result of this merciless attack, many Jews fled to those parts of northwest Africa known as Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, and Mauritania. Many other Jews fled to those areas where Rome did not have any jurisdiction. This was to the region of the south, the Sahara Desert, and the Sudan. Grezel says such is the explanation of how the Sahara Desert first acquired Jewish tribes toughened by a fighting tradition and possessed of physical characteristics, blacks, which it is said still makes them approximate very closely the original Jewish population of Palestine. The black Jews had an advantage over the African tribes. They carried their culture, history, laws, and written records with them. This assured them a constant precedent for the development of a higher social organization. Because of the stability of the black Jewish culture, the Jewish were not absorbed into the autochthonous population. In fact, the Jews absorbed some of the native tribes. The Jews made use of every opportunity. They were an industrious and a skillful people. In the Jewish Ghanaian state were found kings, princes, governors, generals, secretaries, treasurers, revenue agents, judges, architects, engineers, doctors, historians, language interpreters, mathematicians, jewelers, sculptors, masons, carpenters, painters of art, goldsmiths, leather workers, potters, armorers, saddlers, blacksmiths, agriculturists, etc. So when we got into the land of Africa, the indigenous people of Africa were already there in the land, but eventually we managed to put these people, we pushed them to the shadow of the land, and we took over because we had a powerful social organization that was stronger than these people's. So, and because we were more skillful than them, we somehow managed to take over the land, which is why today you see Black Africa is actually occupied mostly by the Bantu nation. They are all over the place. The Black Africa is mostly occupied by the Bantu nation, which are the Israelites. And also some of us got mixed with the indigenous people, the indigenous Black African. Some of the Hamite tribe, we got mixed with them, and which is why sometimes it's difficult to identify the Israelite, because their seed got mixed with the indigenous people. And you have the example of Mandela, Nelson Mandela, the former president of South Africa. His seed was actually, he's not a Negroes, he's actually from the Khoisan. The Khoisan is actually a tribe, the indigenous people of South Africa, before the black before the Negroes or the Israelites moved over there. But that don't mean that the South Africans are not Israelite. They are Israelite, but there's a group of people over there who are actually the indigenous people, the Khoisan people. Well, you have some of them that are mixed with these people, the indigenous Black African, and it also happened in other countries. In Central Africa, you have the Pygmy, and some of us mix with those people. A portion of us mix with those people, which is why it's difficult to identify our people sometimes. But mostly these areas of the Bantu nation are Israelite. They're still there. The decline of the Jewish communities of West Africa Maghreb most likely began with the influx of Arab invaders into North Africa starting in 640 CE and later into West Africa in the 1300s and 1400 CE. So after you had established communities and empires on the north and west parts of Africa, after the 7th centuries, that's when Muhammad and his band of thugs came down there on the north parts of Africa with the Quran in one hand and the sword in another one. And they were forcibly converting the Israelite into that nonsense Islam. Because that's not what we're dealing with. That's the Arabs' religion. And that was the beginning and the forefront of the Arab slave trade. In later centuries, Jews are believed to have settled in Western Africa during the height of the Shanghai, Mali, Ghana, and Kenan-Borno Empire. According to accounts from explorers of the region, several powerful Jewish families of the Shanghai Empire were of Jewish origin. Some accounts place West African Jewish communities in the Hondu forest of Dahomey, south of Timbuktu. In the 1930s, these groups still maintain a Torah scroll written in Aramaic that had been burnt into parchment with a hot iron instead of ink so it could not be changed. See, in the 1930s, the historians went over there in Africa and find the Bantu Israelites over there still practicing the Hebraic faith, still knowing who they were, with a Torah, which is the first 5 books of Moses, written in Aramaic. That's the ancient language. And it's a shame that they had to burn it with hot iron so the European colonialists don't come over there and tampering with and taking the evidence and trying to hide the history. It's the shame that they have to do this. That was a total shame that they have to do this, man. Now, you might be asking yourself, if you as a Bantu Negroes, the so-called Bantu Negroes, if you are supposed to be the people of God, the chosen people of God, and the Bible says that you will be scattered and dispersed in the 4 corners of the earth, then who are these people over there in the land of Israel claiming to be you? Those are not the people of God. They have nothing to do with the biblical Israelite. Those are the Ashkenazi Khazars, who under the king Bulan adopted the traditions of the Israelite and then mixed it with paganism and called it Judaism. Then after the so-called Holocaust, which was politically motivated, the elite used that as a pretext to invade the land of Israel and took those Khazarian converts and placed them in Israel in 1948. But prior to that, those people never stepped foot in the land of Israel. Prior to 1948, those people never lived in the land of Israel. Those are Ashkenazi Khazars. Those are Gentiles according to the Bible. They came through the loin of Japheth. Japheth, which is one of the 3 sons of Noah after the flood. Those are Gentiles. They are not the Israelites. The Messiah says that Jerusalem will be trodden down by the Gentiles. Now they are fulfilling these prophecies. They're fulfilling these prophecies that the Messiah talked about. Jerusalem would be trodden down by the Gentiles. These people have no racial connection whatsoever with the biblical Israelite. They are over there in the land of Israel under the authority of Satan, worshiping in the synagogue of Satan. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
I want to discuss a little bit of sensitive history. And if I go to sensitive history, well, then I must quote sources that say it rather than that I say it. This is a fascinating book, and the web pages are there. You can check it out. Facts are facts. This is a book that was written by a Jewish man. And he confronted the thinking of many of the high-placed individuals of the world. This is interesting stuff. In this book, Benjamin H. Friedman, a Jewish man, writes about the Jews and reveals an interesting history. He states that the present Jews in Palestine are not the true descendants of the Judeans, but rather descendants of the Khazars. Benjamin H. Friedman claims that the word Jew was only introduced into the English language in the 18th century, and that Jesus referred to himself as a Judean and not as a Jew. Inscribed upon the cross when Jesus was crucified were the Latin words Iesus Nazarenus Rex Iodeorum, which means Jesus of Nazareth, ruler of the Judeans. As to the origin of the present Jews in Palestine, he states that those Jews derived from Eastern Europe, and many of the Jews that today live in the reconstituted state of Israel come from Eastern Europe, are not descendants of the Judeans or the lost tribes of Israel, but rather descendants of the Khazars. Who are they? They were a nation most people do not even know of. He writes, the so-called self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe in modern history cannot legitimately point to a single ancient ancestor who ever set even a foot on the soil of Palestine in the era of Bible history. Research also revealed that the so-called or self-styled Jews in Eastern Europe were never Semites, are not Semites, now, nor can they ever be regarded as Semites at any future time by any stretch of the imagination. What secret, mysterious power has been able for countless generations to keep the origin and the history of the Khazars and the Khazar kingdom out of the history textbooks? Did you ever learn about it at school? I never learned about it. And out of classroom courses in history throughout the world, the origin and the history of Khazars and the Khazar kingdom are certainly incontestable historical facts. You have to do some cross-checking. Even the Jewish Encyclopedia is quite explicit about it. This was the Khazar kingdom. Here is the Black Sea, the Byzantine Empire. Here was Persia. And here was the kingdom of the Khazars. It was a massive kingdom. Now let's look at some of this interesting history. The Khazars were an Asiatic nation. And the Jewish Encyclopedia states Persian origin that converted to Talmudic Judaism.